Think the stoic, hyper-logical INTJ in your life is an icy fortress no arrow of affection could ever pierce. Look closer. Beneath that chess master exterior hums a private constellation of micro-gestures, calculated favors, and whispered plans. 21 unmistakable signals that you, of all people, have been invited into their inner strategy room. Tonight we'll switch on the infrared goggles, glide past the guarded walls, and watch the mastermind's heart lights blink on, one covert indicator at a time. Ready to decode the codemaker? Enjoying the intel so far? Hit like so this mission gets a green light, subscribe to stay on our wavelength, and share with anyone still misreading that INTJ's poker face. Let's crack the algorithm and the mastermind together. Picture the INTJ as the world's most elegant lock, sleek, perfectly engineered, and absolutely immovable without the precise key. They stride through life with an internal blueprint visible only to them, a constellation of ambitions, efficiencies, and little tolerance for emotional turbulence. Yet here's the twist. That vault-like aura isn't arrogance, it's self-defense. Decoding the INTJ starts with understanding just how bustling their mental control room is. Every conversation, every environment feeds a stream of data they sort, tag, and archive faster than most of us can blink. Emotions? Those are flagged as high-risk variables, powerful, unpredictable, and prone to derail mission success. So when you catch them staring into the distance, they're not brooding. They're simulating futures. When they sidestep small talk, it isn't snobbery, it's bandwidth management. In this world of mental chess, revealing a rook's move, let alone a heartbeat, feels like volunteering a strategic weakness. That's why the first real sign an INTJ likes you isn't a flirtatious wink. It's the moment their laser-focused lens swings away from problem-solving in general and settles with deliberate clarity onto you. They also operate on an energy economy few outsiders grasp. Picture their attention as a limited edition currency minted only for high-leverage pursuits. If they start spending those precious cognitive coins on you, asking follow-up questions, remembering offhand details about your cat's midnight zoomies, pay attention. That investment signals you've graduated from background noise to mission-critical variable. And notice the cadence of their presence. INTJs don't hover aimlessly. They position themselves with the precision of a satellite locking into orbit. At a party, they'll appear within conversational range, not smack in your face, but close enough to intercept your laugh, monitor your mood, and launch a well-timed remark that nudges dialogue deeper. It's silent reconnaissance mixed with cautious invitation. Finally, listen for that subtle shift from monologue to dialogue. When an INTJ pivots from delivering polished conclusions to sharing half-built theories, complete with, "I'm still wrestling with this, what do you think?" That's emotional white flag territory. They're signaling. Here's a draft page from my private manual. Edit it with me. Add it up and you have the foundation. Guarded mind, deliberate time spend, orbiting proximity, and intellectual opening moves. These lay the runway for the 21 tells we're about to unpack, starting with calculated eye contact and strategic seat selection. Ever felt a laser pointer glide across a whiteboard? That's the sensation when an INTJ's gaze lands on you. They don't sprinkle eye contact the way extroverts scatter confetti. They deploy it like GPS beacons, brief, exact, information-rich. Watch for a pattern. Their eyes lock on as you speak, flick sideways to process, then return with microscopic precision. They're not distracted, they're running diagnostics. Is this person worth deeper bandwidth? Here's the giveaway: duration and timing. In casual chatter, an INTJ's glances are milliseconds, just enough to acknowledge humanity. But if interest sparks, each look lengthens by a beat, maybe two, before slipping away. It's a controlled burn, warming without exposing too much heat. Rhetorical question: why risk prolonged eye contact at all if emotions are messy variables? Because for once, the data matters. Those extra seconds gather nuance, your micro smiles, tone shifts, unspoken questions. And notice the callback. Later in the conversation, they'll reference something you said during one of those elongated locks. That's not coincidence. That's proof their silent cameras were rolling. When an INTJ decides your face deserves high-resolution footage, you've crossed into potential partner territory. INTJs are masters of spatial chess. They won't hover like an eager puppy. yet they rarely leave closeness to chance. In a coffee shop, they'll choose the table that gives a clear line of sight to you, close enough to share a comment, far enough to maintain autonomy. At a group dinner, they'll angle their chair toward yours, feet pointing your way, even while their torso faces the buffet of conversation. It's subtle body language triangulation. I'm available to you, but I'm still self-contained. Pay attention to transition zones, walking between meetings, waiting for an elevator, standing in a post-lecture crowd. If the INTJ who could easily stride ahead instead matches your pace, that's a deliberate sync-up. They're creating a micro-bubble where conversation can deepen away from public ears. And here's the clincher, logistics framed as logic. I'll drive, it's on my route anyway, they'll say, replotting their GPS just to share 20 minutes of road with you. Under the guise of efficiency, they're gifting you exclusive bandwidth. When proximity becomes precise rather than coincidental, you've uncovered sign number 2. 2 clues down, 19 to go, each peeling another layer off that intellectual armor. INTJs choreograph their lives with the accuracy of an atomic clock. Every hour has a job, every task a timestamp. So when your name appears in that meticulously coded planner, an afternoon hike next Saturday, a museum exhibit 3 weeks from now, that's no random scribble. It's an infiltration. They've weighed competing variables, forecasted their energy curve, and still concluded time with you yields the highest return on investment. Notice how the invitation lands. Hey, there's a concept art expo on the 12th. Thought you'd find it stimulating. Casual on the surface, yet it arrives days, sometimes months in advance. Why? Because reserving a slot in their future timeline signals long-term intent. Look closer and you'll spot the precision. If you mention a looming deadline, they'll pencil your hangout just after it, betting you'll crave decompression. Complain about winter blues, and a bright indoor botanical garden suddenly appears on the schedule. They're not merely booking activities, they're engineering emotional uplift. Still think that Outlook invite was accidental? Ever arrive home to find a PDF in your inbox? An obscure article that solves the very problem you sighed about over lunch? That's quiet logistics. INTJs tackle obstacles the way chess engines anticipate checkmate. Several moves ahead, entirely off-board. Your laptop charger frays. 2 days later, a sleek replacement appears in your Amazon cart with a "thought this matched your specs" note. You never asked, but they ran the calculation. Minor cost, major improvement to your workflow. An elegant equation that also nudges you another square closer to their inner circle. Watch their route planning. Heading to a weekend seminar? They'll map out parking lots, coffee stops, and the least crowded entrance. Then casually text, "Figured this might save you time." No attention-grabbing fanfare, just seamless efficiency slipped under the radar. It's nurturing disguised as optimization. A way of saying, I value your bandwidth as much as I guard my own. Even their silence carries logistics. You'll mention loving solitude, and suddenly they schedule back-to-back solo work sessions, so your shared evening feels spacious, unhurried. They're not only accommodating your needs, they're curating the environmental variables that let your connection flourish. That's sign number 3 and sign number 4 decoded calendar infiltration plus invisible infrastructure. With an INTJ, conversation can feel like fencing with words. Blades flash, arguments parry, nobody drops their guard. But the instant their critique becomes curious rather than crushing, pay attention. They start tossing "what if" instead of "actually," looping you into their mental sandbox. Notice the grin that flickers when you volley back a sharp counterpoint. It's not mockery, it's delight. You've passed the first test, mental endurance. Here's the shift. Instead of dismantling every premise, they start co-architecting your thesis. Have you read the Swiss study on social cognition? It might boost your angle. That offering isn't random trivia, it's intellectual currency. By investing in your argument, they're co-signing the mortgage on a shared thought house. Rhetorical question: why risk aligning with someone else's hypothesis? Because they now see you as an extension of their own cognitive frontier. Even disagreement softens. They'll pause mid-rebuttal to ask, "Do you feel I'm missing a nuance?" That empathetic checkpoint is rare airtime for INTJs. Proof they value not just winning the point, but preserving the conversational ecosystem you've built together. The surest fingerprint of an INTJ's affection? Your half-formed notion suddenly appears in their master plan, sleek, refined, and cited back to you. You mention a weekend language app. 2 weeks later, they're charting out a joint study schedule complete with spaced repetition metrics. That's not plagiarism, that's prestige. In their world, only high-value concepts get incubator space. By elevating your spark into their structured blueprint, they declare, "Your thinking meets my gold standard." Watch how they reference you in absentia. During a team meeting, they'll remark, "As you once pointed out, redundancy actually boosts resilience." Nobody else may catch the footnote, but you will. And that quiet credit is an intellectual love letter. It says your insight altered my framework. Even more telling is the iterative loop. They'll return days later. "I tried your suggestion, adjusted variables X and Y. Look at the efficiency gain." It's collaboration without ceremony, synergizing strengths while respecting ownership. The underlying message? Together, our cognitive engines run hotter. Sum up signs number 5 and number 6. Playful sparring that turns combative edges into creative sparks, followed by idea adoption that folds your brilliance into their long-range trajectory. Imagine a vault door easing open just wide enough for a single beam of light. That's what it feels like when an INTJ lets slip a personal anecdote. It never arrives with fanfare. You might be dissecting philosophy over coffee when, suddenly, they mention the summer they spent fixing radios with a grandparent, how the smell of solder still means home. The detail is brief, almost parenthetical, yet it hangs in the air like incense. Why share now? Because the calculus finally balanced. You've shown intellectual worth and emotional safety. Notice the pattern of these micro-reveals. They surface at moments of quiet focus, not public chaos, on a late-night walk during a road trip when the highway hum lulls defenses. Each disclosure is pre-screened, significance measured. A childhood ambition here, a private fear there. They're building a breadcrumb trail, testing whether you'll follow without trampling it. And if you respond with empathy rather than interrogation, the next crumb appears sooner. Even their word choice softens. The analytical "one should" shifts to the personal "I felt," signaling a temporary ceasefire in the war on emotional unpredictability. Every "I felt" is a trust microdose, small, potent, meticulously timed. INTJs treat vulnerability like a precision-engineered pressure system. Vent just enough steam to keep the machinery humming, never enough to scorch the room. After a micro-reveal, watch what happens next. They'll subtly scan your reaction. Do your eyes widen with judgment or soften with curiosity? If the reading is safe, they'll grant level 2 clearance, perhaps a regret about dropping art school for engineering, or the panic attack nobody noticed in grad seminar. Each layer peels back only after the previous one lands gently. But the moment your response feels prying, "Why didn't you tell anyone?" the valve snaps shut. You'll hear the clank in their tone as they pivot to data, stats, anything but feelings. That recoil isn't punishment, it's system integrity. Remember, emotions are high volatility fuel in their cognitive engine. Mishandle it, and the whole mission risks combustion. Conversely, handle a reveal well, mirror their sentiment, share a parallel story, and you'll notice latency shrink. The next confession comes days, not weeks later. A sealed envelope slides across the table, a playlist labeled Growing Up 90s Edition, or a dog-eared sci-fi novel they loan only to inner circle allies. That's sign number 7 and sign number 8 decoded, vulnerability rationed with surgical care, and a feedback loop that accelerates when trust compounds. Picture waking to an email marked FYI, only to find the bug that crashed your project last night has already been debugged by someone who wasn't even on the call. That's textbook INTJ stealth support. They monitor your headaches like system alerts, then patch the code while everyone else sleeps. No trumpet blast, just a quiet line. Noticed a loop index mismatch, should be solid now. Why so covert? Because shouting "I helped" would pollute the efficiency they prize. Look for the pattern. Your printer jams, they text a firmware link. Your roommate forgets rent, they ping you a spreadsheet that balances next month's budget. It's not helicoptering, they won't swarm uninvited. They act only when variables align. Problem solvable, plus impact high, plus you unlikely to notice until dawn. The payoff is twofold. Your stress drops and their internal ledger logs a tidy proof of value. Rhetorical question. What better way to say you matter than preempting chaos before you're even aware it's coming? These operations often trace back weeks. You mention an ailing laptop fan, and days later, a YouTube repair tutorial just popped into their feed. Coincidence? More like reconnaissance wrapped in plausible deniability. Another stealth pattern, the resource drop. Without prompting, an INTJ forwards an obscure PDF, a niche podcast episode, or a contact who owes them a favor, all tailored to your exact dilemma. These aren't generic self-help links. They're laser-targeted assets vetted for quality, relevance, and time savings. Think of them as care packages parachuted behind enemy lines before you even radio for supplies. Then comes their favorite power move, the preemptive, already fixed-it message. You're drafting an apology to the landlord for a misfiled payment when your phone buzzes. I adjusted the auto-debit settings. Confirmation attached. At first, it feels borderline psychic. In reality, they trace the failure pathway the moment you sighed. I hate dealing with billing portals, and quietly rerouted the system. What makes these gestures pure INTJ is the minimalist reveal. They'll mention the fix in a footnote, never upstaging your autonomy. Accepting help isn't framed as dependency, but as strategic delegation. Why duplicate effort when my skill set covers that flank? Add it all up, and you've uncovered signs number 9, number 10, and number 11. Proactive patches, curated resources, and subtle status pings that whisper, your well-being is already accounted for. Ever feel as though the INTJ in your orbit carries an invisible clipboard, quietly scanning exits and calculating odds? That's not paranoia, it's protective analysis. The moment you enter their priority file, they start running threat models the way meteorologists track hurricanes. Walking down a dim street, they'll nudge you curbside, citing better visibility. Heading to a concert, they already memorized floor plans, cell dead zones, and the nearest medical tent. Information they'll drip feed only if circumstances demand it. Watch how they mine your anecdotes for hidden variables. Mention an overbearing boss, and they'll ask for specifics. What time does the pressure spike? 3 days later, an article on boundary setting lands in your inbox, highlighted at the exact paragraph you needed. That's sign number 12, situational data gathering, not idle curiosity. Then comes sign number 13, contingency blueprints. You casually rant about a looming rent hike. They forecast your budget, flag potential savings, and slip you a spreadsheet titled Plan B. Their tone stays clinical, just rough numbers, but the subtext roars, your stability matters to me. Rhetorical question. Who else in your life runs disaster drills on your behalf without announcing them? When an INTJ does, you're already under their umbrella. Ever present an idea, only to have the INTJ slice through its weak joints with surgeon-like precision? It can sting until you notice the pattern. Every incision is quickly sutured with a stronger alternative. That's sign number 14. Their harsh feedback isn't sabotage, it's armor plating for your ambitions. An INTJ won't let a shaky plan leave the lab with your name on it. Listen to the cadence. Your concept is solid, but variables X and Y will tank ROI. Fix those and we're golden. No vague platitudes, no sugarcoating, just actionable intel. They're betting you'd rather withstand a controlled burn in private than a public explosion down the line. It's protection disguised as critique. Notice too how they calibrate tone based on your stress meter. If you're worn thin, they'll swap the scalpel for soft suggestions. Have you thought about? But if you stride in brimming with confidence, they'll unleash the full diagnostic drill. Either way, the motive is the same. Shore up your flank before the world takes a shot. Put together signs number 12, number 13, and number 14, and you get a bodyguard of logic, risk mapping, contingency planning, and tough love debugging, all designed to keep you thriving. When an INTJ starts talking about 5-year horizons, listen closely for a pronoun shift. If I quietly morphs into we, welcome to sign number 15. Suddenly their retirement graph includes a second line. Your desired climate, your field's job market, even your allergy to tree pollen. They've run simulations where both happiness curves spike in the same zip code. Notice how they beta test the future in casual hypotheticals. If someone, say one of us, moved to Vancouver, would rain bother you by March? That's not idle chatter. It's a stealth feasibility study. They're gauging your reaction before locking findings into the master file. Then there's the coffee order anomaly. Last month you joked about needing oat milk lattes to function. Today they arrive with one unprompted barcode still warm. That's sign number 16, preference caching. In INTJ speak, remembering small constants like caffeine ratios isn't cute. It's data integrity for the shared system they're building. Rhetorical question. Why spend cognitive bandwidth on another person's micro-defaults unless that person factors into critical path?
Exactly. Watch for the milestone sync cue, sign number 17.
You mention a dream of finishing grad school by 2028. A week later, the INTJ's personal roadmap displays a sabbatical penciled for that same year, in that same city. Coincidence? Hardly. They're aligning major thrust vectors so your trajectories converge instead of collide. If they once spoke of buying property someday, listen as the target date slides to match your post-degree move. They'll even sandbox potential hurdles. If we relocated, your visa turnaround averages 90 days. Here's a checklist. The pronoun we is no accident. They've mentally upgraded the mission from solo flight to co-piloted expedition. And this isn't romantic daydreaming. It's logistical architecture complete with Gantt charts hidden in their Notion boards. Pay attention when their future prototypes solicit your edits. Would you rather set up the home office facing east or south? That open tab in their brain means the blueprint isn't final until you co-sign. For an INTJ, design control is sacred. Handing you the pen is an act of monumental trust. So, when life plans, coffee orders, and long-range milestones all start pulsing around you, know the strategist has chosen a partner for the endgame. Open your phone after a random Wednesday, and there it is, a Spotify playlist titled Nocturnal Focus for You. Track 1? The ambient composer you raved about last month. Track 7? A deep-cut remix that solves your study session boredom. That's sign number 18, curated media as encrypted affection. INTJs don't spam links, they build intellectual mixtapes. Each song, article, or TED Talk passes a triple filter. Will it expand your thinking, soothe your stress, or spark a shared joke? Notice the packaging. The message reads, "Thought this matched your vibe, no pressure." Translation: I spent hours mapping your cognitive palette, but I'm cool if you skip track 9. The beauty lies in consent culture. They hand you the key, never shove you through the door. Then comes sign number 19. Article drops time to your circadian rhythm. You mention wrestling with imposter syndrome, and at 6 a.m., your inbox pings with a neuroscientific breakdown of confidence hacks. Links arrive when you're fresh enough to absorb them, proving they've charted not just your interests, but your energy curves. Rhetorical question: who else schedules empathy to sync with your mental prime? Here's sign number 20, the midnight ping that feels more like a campfire than a notification. The INTJ who usually guards their downtime now drops you a still awake at 12:07 a.m., prime solar reflection hour. What follows isn't small talk. It's a slow rolling thread of thought experiments, half-formed fears, and meme-level humor that never sees daylight. These nocturnal exchanges are safe mode vulnerability. The world is quiet, cognitive defenses lower, and sharing feels less like exposure, more like encrypted file transfer. Watch how the tempo mirrors your replies. If you answer in 3 minutes, their response lands in 2. You lapse for 15, they give you 20, an unspoken pact of mutual pacing. And note the sign-off ritual. Get some rest, big day tomorrow. It's care disguised as efficiency, the perfect INTJ hybrid. Even their typing bubbles tell a story. You'll glimpse them, disappear, then reappear. Proof they're editing for clarity, trimming data noise so your brain doesn't churn. Emotional consideration delivered in binary form. When curated playlists, perfectly timed articles, and late-night thought dives converge, you've uncovered the digital heartbeat of an INTJ in like. One breadcrumb is curiosity. A breadcrumb trail is commitment. When INTJs confess, they don't stumble through feelings, they present findings. Expect a setting with minimal noise, an evening walk, a quiet terrace, somewhere variables are controlled. They'll open with a logical premise. I've been analyzing our dynamic. Then comes the data, shared projects, emotional resonance, conflict efficiency. Finally, the conclusion. I want us to build a future together. It sounds clinical, yet watch their eyes. That steady gaze is adrenaline restrained by discipline. Sign 21 has arrived. The mastermind slides the blueprint across the table and waits, blueprint-free hands slightly trembling. Notice the precision. They'll outline potential risks, career relocations, time constraints, and proposed mitigations, remote work strategies, scheduled solitude.
They aren't just declaring affection. They're offering a joint venture with contingency clauses already drafted.
For an INTJ, love is too important to under-engineer. The reveal may feel sudden, but the prototype has run countless simulations behind the scenes. If you've reached this moment, understand, every silent breadcrumb, every logistical favor, every midnight message was part of the validation phase. The experiment is now ready for launch. First, match their sincerity with clarity. Vagueness rings like corrupted data. If you share their vision, state it plainly. I see the future you're mapping and I want in. Then add a personal clause, your own goals, boundaries, or worries. INTJs respect parameters. They'll fold them into the design. If you need time, request it with structure. Give me a week to think. Let's revisit over coffee next Friday. They'll admire the scheduled reasoning space. It mirrors their own process and signals seriousness, not avoidance. Avoid emotional whiplash. A sudden gush of romantic cliches can overload their passing unit, while cold skepticism may trigger a full systems reboot. Aim for balanced warmth, gratitude for the courage shown, enthusiasm for the possibilities, and honest dialogue about uncertainties. Regardless of your answer, acknowledge the work beneath their words. Say, I see how carefully you've considered this, and you validate both their heart and their intellect, the dual core of every INTJ. From there, collaboration or graceful exit can proceed without data loss or bruised dignity. So the lock clicks open, the theorem unfurls, and the choice is yours. Step into the strategy room or wish the architect well. Either way, you'll never misread that poker face again.